Despite the clear dominance of medium-range air defense and missile defense systems like the VTIAS and Buk, there remains an important role for far more advanced complexes such as the Promedy, also known as the S-500. Today, we will take a closer look at the formation of its first regiment. News about the formation of the first S-500 regiment surfaced back in December last year, but it largely went unnoticed. The reason for this lies in the overwhelming dominance of other interceptor systems, at least in the information space. However, just a few days ago, an American publication released an article in which the author attempted to analyze some interesting aspects of the newly formed unit's structure and speculate on what this means in a broader sense. Naturally, our media picked up on this information, spreading the so-called expert analysis, which is exactly what we want to discuss. Let's start with the missiles more specifically, their quantity, since this is a crucial factor that directly determines the system's capability to repel attacks. According to the article's author, the S-500 regiment consists of as many as 12 launchers, which are supposedly capable of intercepting up to 10 highly complex targets, including ICBMs and similar threats. Where these figures come from remains unclear, but the question arises, isn't that too few? To compare, let's take a look at its predecessor, the S-400. A typical S-400 regiment consists of 2 battalions, with the only exception being the regiment protecting the Leningrad region, which has 4 battalions. Each battalion is equipped with 8 to 12 launchers, meaning a regiment can have up to 24 launchers and 96 interceptors. While directly applying the S-400 structure to the S-500 might not be ideal, this comparison is still illustrative. 24 missiles per regiment simply don't seem sufficient, even for a missile defense system. Looking at it from another angle, in this proposed structure, each battalion would only have 6 launchers, or 12 missiles in total. How effective can it be at intercepting massed attacks when it only has slightly more than a dozen interceptors? Even ATACMS missiles are often launched in similar numbers, meaning there wouldn't be enough interceptors for a 2-missile-per-target engagement. This raises doubts about its effectiveness until one considers a more likely explanation. The American author probably confused a regiment with a battalion. And this isn't a translation mistake. The original article explicitly refers to a regiment. With this correction, everything makes much more sense. A full regiment should indeed have up to 12 launchers within a familiar structural framework, meaning not just 24 missiles, but 48. This is sufficient for repelling attacks. If we consider a reinforced version with 4 battalions, then the number of interceptors approaches 100, making it possible to counter ICBMs effectively, given the S-500's capabilities. Now, why is the deployment of the first S-500 regiment in the southern direction particularly important? The answer is simple. Only the S-500 can effectively protect a large area from ballistic missiles of various ranges, including ATACMS. The problem lies in the fact that these missiles reach altitudes far higher than what the S-400 can handle. Yes, the S-400 can easily detect ATACMS, but it can only attempt to intercept them on their downward trajectory. ATACMS can reach just over 50 kilometers in altitude at their peak, while the S-400's interceptors are limited to 35 kilometers, and not all missile types even reach that height. In contrast, the S-500's interceptors have no such limitations, as they can engage targets at altitudes between 150 and 200 kilometers. This is more than enough to intercept any enemy missile, including the upcoming American quasi-hypersonic PRSM. In other words, while the S-400 must wait for the right moment to launch, the S-500's interceptors are already flying towards their targets before they reach a favorable attack window. This is a crucial advantage, and it also significantly improves the survivability of both defensive assets and protected targets. Here's why. Many ballistic missiles carry cluster warheads, which may be released even if the missile itself is intercepted. This scenario is rare but possible. Sometimes the warhead reaches the ground even though the carrier missile was technically destroyed. The only way to prevent this is to intercept the missile before it reaches its peak and begins its descent toward the target. Another key advantage is the increased interception range. While exact figures remain classified, by comparison with the American THAAD system, we can reasonably expect a similar engagement range, roughly 200 to 300 kilometers for ballistic targets. The often cited 600 kilometers range likely refers to the over-the-horizon for ON-6, a missile with an active seeker, which is primarily designed for traditional aerial targets such as aircraft. Notably, its predecessor, the 4ON-6 from the S-500 system, demonstrated exceptional long-range interception capabilities just a year and a half ago. To summarize, the deployment of the first S-500 regiment in the southern direction is a highly significant development as it directly enhances defense capabilities against enemy ballistic missiles. Ideally, at least 2 to 3 such regiments should be stationed in the area, given the coverage requirements, but even a single one already provides a serious advantage, one that will soon be tested in practice.